John Lewis.
John Lewis.
John Lewis.
One of the big six leaders of the civil rights movement in the 1960s, John continued to fight for people's rights after joining Congress in 1987. John grew up in an era of racial segregation. He was inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King's sermons, and he joined the burgeoning civil rights movement. John became a freedom rider. John spoke in 1963 on the March on Washington, and John also led out in the demonstration that became known as Bloody Sunday.
He was elected to Congress in 1986 and received the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2011. John Robert Lewis was born outside of Troy, Alabama on February 21st, 1940. Lewis had a happy childhood, though he needed to work hard to assist his sharecropper parents, but he chafed against the unfairness of segregation. John and Lillian adopted John Miles in 1976 when he was just 2 months old. John Lewis said he fell in love with his son the very first time he saw him.
He was particularly disappointed in the Supreme Court's ruling in 1954, Brown versus the Board of Education, because it did not affect his school life. However, hearing of King's sermons and hearing of the 1955 through 1956 Montgomery bus boycott, John decided to be the change he wanted to see. He left Alabama. He went to the American Baptist Theological Seminary, and he learned about nonviolent protests, and he led in many sit-ins at segregated lunch counters.
At segregated lunch counters.
Segregated lunch counters.
After the March on Washington in 1964, the Civil Rights Act became law. However, this did not make it easier for African Americans to vote in the South. To bring attention to this struggle, Lewis and Hosea Williams led a march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama on March 7, 1965. After crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge, the marchers were attacked by the state troopers. Lewis was severely beaten once more, this time suffering a fractured skull. Though devastated by the assassination of King and Robert Kennedy in 1968, Lewis continued his work to enfranchise minorities.
After Barack Obama won the presidency in 2008, John said, after going on many voter registration drives, after going on many freedom rides, after going to Washington for the first time, being put in jail, being beaten, I never dreamed of the possibility that an African American would one day become the president of the United States. In 2019, John was diagnosed with 4th stage pancreatic cancer, and July 17th of 2020, John passed.
This has been a Black History Month moment brought to you by Black Excellent Leadership Council. Until next time.